Welcome back to the Forgive Yourself podcast, my friend. I'm your host, Brenda Reese. 2 years ago this month, I made one of the hardest decisions, really, of my life. Moving my husband, Doug, into memory care. And last year, in episode 64, titled A Difference a Year Makes, I shared the rawness of that first year, the pain, the shock, the anticipatory grief, and the heartbreaking guilt of loving someone who is here, but not the same. Today, I want to share what 2 years have taught me, what has softened, what has changed, and what still catches me off guard. Because the truth is, time doesn't erase grief, but it shifts it. It shifts us in what I call breaking me open. Now, if you're walking your own dementia journey with a spouse, a parent, a sibling, or someone you love deeply, this episode is for you. I want you to know you're not alone and that your humanity matters. And if you're walking a path of grief, especially in relationships, this episode is also for you. You are not alone, and your humanity matters. Before I share where I am today, I wanted to recap this episode that I was talking about, the first year. In that episode, I talked about the raw pain of having a spouse with dementia, watching the slow, unpredictable unraveling of someone you love. I shared the excruciating decision, because that's what it was, to move Doug into memory care, a choice no partner imagines making, especially when we were fairly early in our relationship. 13 years together at that time. I talked about the identity crisis that comes along with being a wife who feels single, yet isn't. She's still responsible, still loving, but grieving what will never be again, or will never be. I named anticipatory grief happening in waves without warning. I opened up the layers of guilt and shame, anger, frustration, and how isolating it can feel. I shared the importance of asking for help, letting others in, and allowing every messy human feeling to exist, even the ones all those books say you shouldn't have. You'll hear me go off on a tangent on that one, because I spoke about reading this advice, right? To be patient and to be kind, when my heart was cracked open and I was hurt and angry and exhausted. Now, if you want to hear that episode, that's number 64. But now I want to talk about where I am 1 year later. Year 2 has been a different kind of hard. I thought this year would feel more settled. I imagined my nervous system finally getting a break after surviving that first year of shock and transition. But that's not what happened. We started the year with Doug having several falls, one that led to a concussion. I was on a business trip and I had to fly home early because he was so confused. Scarily confused. And with these falls taking place, we put systems in place to alert the staff whenever he got up. And I tried encouraging him to use a walker, even having the doctor talk to him. But his stubbornness, his lifelong independence came through so strong. And that's just the falls just kept happening. He ended up with a couple black eyes from hitting the ground several times. It was a mess. And suddenly, just like the year before, I was back on alert, hypervigilant, body lit up, my nervous system on fire. If you've gone through something like this, you know what that feels like. Because see, every time I had traveled, he would fall. And even though the doctors recommended me not telling him when I traveled because it triggered his anxiety, I still found myself afraid to leave. I was afraid to get that phone call. I was afraid of of being called back from wherever I was. I was afraid of something happening while I was gone. I had so much anxiety, and my body felt so much bracing. And on top of his health, there's real life. Real life was happening too, or extra life, or however we want to put that. The house needed siding, more windows needed replaced. My deck had issues. The power kept going out, and I had to figure out a generator system. Oh my God, bless my neighbor who helped me with that, because I was drowning in decisions I never thought I'd be making alone, at least not this soon. Because in our marriage, Doug handled what he always said, the outside stuff, and I handled the inside stuff. It was our rhythm. We all have our own rhythms, right? In relationship. It was his way of showing love. And honestly, it was really good because he never wanted to cook or do the laundry. And yeah, after he cooked for me and I saw how he did laundry, that was a no-brainer for me. It was like, I got this one. You handle that stuff, I'll handle this stuff. But with these things keep happening with the house, it was like more firsts. Like after a loss or trauma, we have these firsts. And each first felt like a reminder. Brenda, you're on your own now. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. Because I thought year 2 would be a little softer, more manageable, more familiar. But what actually happened was my body, with some of the shock wearing off, started allowing me to feel more. But let me say it this way, I could feel more emotion. I could feel the frustration or anger. I could feel sadness. But I couldn't let the grief out, not fully. I still felt like I was like frozen a little bit. You know what that feels like? I could breathe in, but I couldn't breathe totally out, which is funny because it's exactly what I remind my clients. You can't just breathe in, honey. You have to breathe out. You have to exhale. But I couldn't exhale, at least deeply. My mind wanted to grieve. My heart wanted to grieve, but my nervous system was locked in survival. So the first 6 months of this second year was filled with doctor's appointments, physical therapy, and then, like dementia often does, he rallied. He's in this decline, and then he rallies. Suddenly, he was clearer, more alert, more himself. Not 100% himself, right? Because we still have dementia, but what? That's how I felt. What? And then, as dementia does, the decline hits again. Last fall. More memory loss, more lack of comprehension. His sense of time went awry. He started forgetting the grandkids' names. He lost track of the days. And this was a man who had always been super sharp with calendars and clocks. I mean, he could tell you what time of day it was without even looking. It was crazy. Now, I had already been visiting more often with the falls, yet now I'm visiting more and more. I was convinced it was still my job to make sure he was okay, even though he was in an excellent facility, even though he had 24/7 care. Something deep inside me still whispered, Brenda, it's your responsibility. Now, this had some internal conflict, right? This feeling I had, because I was thinking, I think some of you can relate, I'm a coach. I help people with this. Why can't I figure this out? I had a therapist. I had my own coach. I had a handful of super close and really wonderful, caring friends. But my body, my wise and sometimes stubborn body, she wasn't ready. It wasn't safe yet. Not safe enough yet to let go. And then came the shock that changed everything. It happened a few months ago, towards the end of the year in the fall. I walked into his room and I found him kissing a female resident. They were holding hands, looking at each other with that same fondness we used to have. And that was it. The dam broke. The grief poured out of me like a huge, like Snoqualmie Falls here in Washington in the winter after our rainy season. There was deep, deep sobbing and excruciating heartache that had me feeling so alone and just, it went so deep. And then at the same time, interestingly enough, memories of past betrayals kept flooding in like popcorn popping. It was amazing to witness. It was all the times I didn't speak up, all the people I put before myself, all the ways I silenced my own needs, all the moments I abandoned myself because I thought being the good girl was the path to being loved. And my body collapsed under the weight of all of that. I got incredibly sick, a massive upper respiratory infection that lasted weeks. And yet, honestly, it was exactly what my body and my psyche, my whole being needed. It was forced downtime, forced stillness, forced receiving. And then when I got better, I went back to visit Doug. And I walked in on him with that same resident, again, in different capacities, several times. And you know, in all honesty, I'm like, what the fuck? That was my initial reaction. I'm human, right? We have to allow the humanity because it felt like punishment. What the hell? What? I'm grieving. I'm allowing this out. I'm fortifying myself in different places. And what? I mean, it just kept happening. And I'm thinking, what am I missing? Did I do something wrong? What did I do wrong? All the normal things we would ask. Yet after letting myself actually feel what was happening, there was a softening that started to happen. And I realized I'm not being punished. I'm being shown something really important. I was being shown because what was coming up for me every time, right, was these, what I call dust bunnies of places of, because our bodies keep the score. Yes. We know this. We have enough. If you're listening to this podcast, you know enough about the body and emotions that it hides. And the more we have been the good girl or living out patterns and beliefs throughout our life, the more we have stuffed down and they have to go somewhere. But now my subconscious is going, yeah, we're done. My body's saying, yeah, we're going to move on from this. We're going to heal. So I was being shown all the places in my life I still hadn't let go, where I still thought being the good wife would somehow protect me, where I still believed love needed to be earned through effort, behavior, self-sacrifice. And this, my friend, was a turning point. Was it comfortable? No. Growth isn't. And I think that's why we try to hide from it, or we try to distract ourselves from it. Yet, let me tell you, and I'm going to tell you, well, let me go on with what happened next, because where I'm at today in this short period of time is different than where I was then. One of the leadership staff at the facility, at the memory care facility, one night after visiting Doug, looked me straight in the eye and said, "Brenda, you've been holding on so tight. Can you let us be the caregivers? That's what we're here for. Can you give yourself permission to live your own life? Maybe take a trip. Maybe do something for you. Find what brings you, yourself, joy." And in that moment, something inside me broke open more deeply and healed at the same time. You know, all these messages throughout the year that I was receiving about letting go and about living my own life and owning my own foundation suddenly started to make sense. My emotional foundation began to solidify. Not perfectly, but enough. So today, I feel stronger. I feel more grounded in me, in my body, in my awareness, right? In taking responsibility for me and not focusing on other people so much to get that love and appreciation. Now, I'm still wobbly sometimes, but wobbly is part of healing, and that is expected because this foundation is new. And, and I've been able to look and go, I'm human. Because at first I was kind of beating myself up. I've been doing the work. Why didn't I catch this? Yet I wasn't ready to. My body wasn't ready to. The more we live, the more we are aware of ourselves, the more deeper we go. And it is an honor and a gift. That's the way I look at it. I choose to, because now I'm more solid in who I am. For me, I'm not only showing up differently for me, but I show up differently with Doug now. I'm not resentful, and I was. I'm not angry, and I was. And the biggest thing is I'm not taking it personally. This is also his journey. He's got things he's going through himself, and I have mine. And another big one is I'm not trying to earn love by over caring. I'm showing up as myself, for myself, the old oxygen mask on first. And I'm loving him in the way that is appropriate for where he is. And I'm loving me in the way I needed to all along. Not as the good wife, not as the good girl, not as someone who has to earn love, but simply as Brenda, a woman who loves, who is healing, who is learning, who is grieving, who is forgiving. And I'm reclaiming my life one breath at a time. I'm learning to exhale. I really appreciate you being here with me today and for holding space for this part of my story, because I hold space for you if some of this is your story too. If you're navigating dementia with someone you love, or really any kind of ongoing grief, I hope this reminds you that you are not alone. Every emotion is allowed. Every wobble is normal. And asking for help is not a weakness, it's wisdom. If you'd like to hear the first part of this journey, you can go back and listen to episode 64, A Difference a Year Makes. And if the good girl or good wife or putting others first kind of resonated with you, then you can listen to the Good Girl Syndrome. That is number 94. And that's where I shared more about my awareness of what I learned through these last few months. And we'll link those in the show notes to make it easier for you. Thank you again for being here. And as always, be gentle with yourself. And really, I'd love you to remember that you matter. You matter a lot. And until next time, take good care of you. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did enjoy it, would you do me a favor and share this episode and then follow us on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss one episode of the Forgive Yourself podcast, where every Friday you will get tips, tools, and stories so that you can turn your pain into peace. Take care.